Jared Vanderaa is vomiting in a bucket. He was dry heaving for a while. Man, Alexei Oleinik.
The world is round. The sky is blue. Unranked heavyweights on a UFC Fight Night main card. What's new? We have Jared Vanderaa taking on the Vanilla Gorilla Chase Sherman. And for both of these guys, they're 1-4 in their last 5 fights. They're unranked heavyweights, and it's just a whole lot of nothing.
Their records are kind of reminiscent. You know when you hear about like a baseball card from the 20s that sold for like $1 million? Did you see a picture of it? And it's got like holes, it's all ripped apart. Like that's what these guys' records are at this stage of their careers.
It's bad. For Jared Vanderaa, he won on Dana White's Contender Series 2020 with a TKO victory, the old ground and pound over Mr. Hunsucker, Harry Hunsucker himself. And since then, Jared Vanderaa, that 1-4, they've all come inside the UFC's octagon. The debut was against Sergey Spivak. He lost that one, but listen, I mean, it's Sergey Spivak. It's not like Jared Vanderaa called him out and the UFC made that fight. Oh, wait, no, yeah, Jared Vanderaa called out Sergey Spivak, and then he lost that fight.
A weird call-out, though. Can we just go back to that quick? Like, if you call out an opponent, normally you go for a guy who's past his prime and has a big name. You know, it's just, like, Chael Sonnen has the best quote ever. You want the easiest fight for the most amount of money. It makes your life a lot easier. Jared Vanderaa sat back and thought, hey, who's the hardest fight for the least amount of money? And I'm assuming they gave him Sergey Spivak.
Well, then they gave him Justin Tafa, and they had a bloodbath, and Jared Vanderaa won that fight against a kickboxer in primary, striking. So that was kind of crazy for Jared Vanderaa. He loses to Alexander Romanov, but that's going to happen, so I'm fine with that. Lose a split decision to Andrei Arlovski. Very close fight. And then his last time out, almost 2.5 months ago, he loses to Alexei Oleinik in a fight. Go back and watch it. Jared Vanderaa minus 125 favorite. He gets taken down, but he gets brought into the guard of Oleinik, so you think, okay, this is just like Junior Albini. We're going to get Ezekiel'd in this one. No, Jared's cool about it. Jared ends up getting the back of Alexei Oleinik. He gets the hooks in. He's punching him. He's threatening with the neck crank. Jared Vanderaa is having a great time. They scramble a little bit. Vandeera's still in a good spot. And then ultimately, Oleinik gets into that scarf hold position that he did against Derek Lewis, where Derek Lewis went, hey,
I'm thick and you can't do it.
I'm just getting out of this. Jared Vanderaa went, no, I'm tapping. But then the weirdest part about it, Matt, was the fact that after the fight was over, backstage, Jared Vandeera's like, hey, I don't speak your language and you don't speak mine.
Come here.
Yeah, they just kind of embrace, but it's more so Jared could learn how to do it. So for you UFC fans out there this week, watch out for Jared Vanderaa. Maybe from learning the tricks of the trade of old Alexei Oleinik, he's going to scarf hold Chase Sherman, who again is no angel. And listen, Chase Sherman was a social media pariah back in 2017, but what you might not know is the fact that Chase Sherman's 3-9 in the UFC. He had the one fight of the night against the Daywalker, Rashad Coulter, finished him in the second round. But for Chase Sherman, they cut him from the UFC so he could expand on his BKFC. They signed him back to take his last fight against Alexander Romanov, and he lost that one. But before that, a loss to Jake Collier where he gets dropped by a push jab, kind of slips. Collier ends up getting him on the mat, finishing him. Parker Porter beat him by decision. Andrei Arlovski beat him by decision. Chase Sherman's last win 2 years ago, a TKO victory over Hurricane Ike Villanueva.
I have no confidence in a guy who basically quit this sport a year ago. I don't think that's an unfair criticism of it either. Chase Sherman's last win is over
4 or 5 months ago.
Sorry, you're proving my point for me even more. Chase Sherman's last win is over a guy, and what's his background? What does Ike Villanueva go into the cage to do? Mainly box, exactly. No grappling whatsoever. Chase Sherman left this sport behind to do one that doesn't have grappling in it. I'm just very surprised that Chase Sherman is still on the UFC roster. I don't mean this to be rude or anything. I'm not trying to be a dick, but Sam Alvey's lost a lot of fights in a row, but at least he's had some performances that you can look at and get excited about. The Pacquiao knockout was insane. There's been some highs to go along with the lows. Chase Sherman's had a lot of very subpar performances at this stage of his career, and I'll even bring up the Cynthia Calvillo fight to kind of reference Chase Sherman's. For Calvillo, she had looked good, and then she kind of reached a plateau with her skills, and now we know she might not be the elite upper division. But there's at least a few losses in there where she had some positives in her losses. Chase Sherman's getting blown out in a lot of these losses, and it is somewhat concerning even. Even the Andrei Arlovski loss. Going into that fight, Arlovski was fighting split decisions against basically everybody, and losing a lot of them too. Andrei looked pretty good against Chase Sherman, though, and it wasn't even it was a close fight where the judges just sided with Andrei Arlovski. Arlovski convincingly outboxed Chase Sherman on the feet and was noticeably faster than him, too. I just don't really know what,
No. Chase Sherman's a better boxer than Jared Vanderaa, and Chase Sherman, when he dedicates himself to the leg kick, he can beat Jared Vanderaa. Jared Vanderaa has a wrestling background. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, training out of Dan Henderson's training center, Team Quest, so on and so forth. But when you look at it for Vanderaa, it's bringing it all together, and it rarely happens for Vanderaa. That's why he's 12-8. But by the same token, for Sherman, he's 15-10, and had that stint with Island Fights and BKFC before he ended up back in the UFC. Neither one of these guys is any, spring chicken when it comes to ranked fighters in the UFC's heavyweight division.
You are 100% correct. This is one of those fights where you almost have, well, this is weird. I was going to say, I don't see either fighter going on to have like a 10-12 fight UFC career. Both these guys can maybe lose 10 fights in a row and they will still be around. But for Jared Vanderaa, you do kind of bring up my point that I was going to make for me. At least Vanderaa likes grappling and can do it and wants to learn more about it. Like, those are going to be three really important things going into this fight against Chase Sherman, because I agree with you. I don't think Vanderaa can strike with Sherman for multiple rounds or even long portions of this fight. I think he can strike his way into the clinch and then go for the takedown quite a bit. And for Sherman, I just don't know how much he has to offer for resistance of takedowns, and that's really against anybody. Like, for Sherman, I do think he has decent movement on the feet, but he's one of these heavyweights who, he likes to play the pitter-patter game, and then he will sit down on some of his shots. I just don't think he has the greatest footwork to where it's almost a positive against takedown defense. For Sherman, until I see something completely different than what I have seen throughout his fights, I'm going to find it very hard to pick him.
It is a very tough fight. So again, you got guys on multiple losing streaks and 1-4 in their respective last 5 fights. You have a look at the odds. Vanderaa open -200, -180. He was a -125 against Alexei Oleinik. He lost that fight. Chase Sherman open +170, +151 at this point. And again, maybe you want to compare Jared Vanderaa to Chase Sherman's second to last loss, because both these guys have lost to Romanov. I throw that out. The guy's a future title challenger. But when you look at it for Sherman, you look at it for Vanderaa, Jake Collier's a little bit of the comp, but Jake Collier is way faster, steadier on the feet, and he throws way more for volume and sets down in his shots. For Jared Vanderaa, he throws a jab and holds his head back, and then he'll throw his right hand, but there's not the most power on it. He's just looking to do something so he can awkwardly get in close to you to then try and take you down. Like, I look at Jared Vanderaa and Josh Parisian as like the same guy in my mind's eye. They're 2008's kind of like 16th ranked heavyweight, if you will. When I look at Chase Sherman, way better boxing, and I mean that, like, he doesn't have good head movement. He will move his core. He gets hit a lot, though. But he moves his head into certain shots. But he does have power in the first round. He does have volume in the first round. And he does have good leg kicks. He's been at Sanford MMA now. This will be his 3rd camp. Much longer before that, he was out at D'Iberville back home. He had a couple of fights where he was doing the trip over to Factory X, but that wasn't really working out. So another fight camp at Sanford. I'm eager to see if there's a wrinkle in his game. Matt, I'm not even going to, you know what? Why not? Tapology vote, surprise to us, they are to you. 81% Vanderaa, 19% Sherman. They're going off the fact that Jared Vanderaa has a wrestling background and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And listen, if you don't believe that he has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he normally paints his nails black to make you remember it. So maybe we'll see that, like a little bit of Salto Lamaki action in 2013 when he had the highlighter color on his nails, so you can see those catcher signs.
It's pretty gangster, honestly.
Well, it's just a good way to see.
I think it's cool.
But for me, I have Vanderaa based off the complete skill set, but if Chase Sherman knocked him out in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
MMA is one of the newest mainstream sports. You know, like, baseball's very old, so there's this rich history, and it's gone through its ups and downs and its different eras. MMA is still very young, but let's go back to the first UFC tournament. There was grapplers against strikers, and we just saw who was the best. Most of the time, at the lowest level, a grappler will beat a striker. And I'm basically making my prediction for this fight based off the fact that Hoist Gracie beat Ken Shamrock in 1994.
Or you look at it the other way, and Gerard Gordeau beat poor old Taylor Tooley. So there is that. Striker versus...
No one's ever done sumo in MMA, so I'm not worried about it at all. Jared Vanderaa has all of the counters for Chase Sherman. Same thing has to be said, Sherman has a lot of the counters for Vanderaa, but I do side with the grappler over the striker in a lower level fight.
Both of us going with Jared Vanderaa to get his 13th pro win to make it 13-8, and maybe Chase Sherman will go 15-11. It's a fight on a main card of a fight night that you're not going to want to miss. Keep it locked in with Fight Night picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.